we're going to build inclusively in full partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis.
Yep, you heard that right. Mark Carney wants to build inclusively. My name is Nico Lagan, and I'm too conservative for the conservatives. My co-host, Rob Ambrose, not woke enough for the liberals. We are the political orphans. Tonight on the show, we're going to speak about how courtroom staff now need to ask permissions to wear poppies, Carney's new Buy Canadian policy, and at 8:30, we are joined by none other than Nadine Wellwood to speak about the federal budget that was tabled last week. Before we get started, remember that the main goal of this show is to promote civil discourse. So it doesn't matter if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, if you're left, you're right. We want to hear from you. So join the conversation and leave a comment below. Join us live. It's even better. 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday to Thursday, and tell us exactly how you feel about the main topics of the day. What's going on, man?
What's up, man? So we got that Nadine coming in for the economics expert.
You got it. You got it. And she is absolutely amazing. She knows her stuff. I recorded with her last week. We covered the budget. Mm-hmm. The live budget, the tabling of the budget, and man, that woman is on fire. So I had to have her on. We'll do a deep dive at 8:30, and yeah, get ready for this, man, because she's a live wire. There you go. That's a good way to describe her. She's an absolute live wire. I called her a hothead the other day because she's very, very opinionated and she has a lot of energy. But nice. Before we get started, I thought it would show, but yes, this, guys. Main topic of the day. Cannot believe. You know what? Let's just start. Man, it doesn't show on my microphone. I'll have more respect. I will pin it right here. Hopefully, I don't stab myself as I'm saying that. I'm stabbing myself.
I don't know why they haven't figured out like a safer, like all these years, and it's still just a pin. You know what I mean? Like make it a safety pin or something. But for whatever reason, poppies are just. I'm always drilled.
You know why?
Into my chest.
Because when they were designed for men, not fucking pussies.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's the thing. So you know what? Yeah. Let's start right there. Let's start with the Nova Scotia decision. So we have some Supreme Court judges in Nova Scotia that are preventing their staff of wearing poppies in their courtrooms.
That's crazy.
This is absolutely insane because they call wearing a poppy political. Listen to this.
That's crazy.
In Nova Scotia, where the province's chief justices issued a statement today supporting individual judges prohibiting courtroom staff from wearing Remembrance Day poppies on the basis that they're political statements. The province's chief justice and judge both say judges have an obligation to ensure the courtroom is, quote, unbiased and impartial, end quote. And banning a symbol such as a poppy is not intended to undermine veterans, but to ensure everyone knows court is a neutral space. Staff who wish to wear a poppy in court must seek approval from the presiding judge. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston is against the move, which he called disgusting earlier in the week in a statement. The Premier also added that if necessary, he'll introduce the Nova Scotia Remembrance Observance Act that will enshrine the right to wear a poppy in the workplace from November 1st to November 11th.
So
absolutely ridiculous.
No problem. Muslims can pray in the middle of the street, block traffic, no problem. They can wear their hijab, no problem. The Indian, the Sikhs.
No. Rainbow pins.
Of course not. Of course not. So you have all the identities in the world that can wear whatever the fuck sign they want, whenever the fuck they want it. But God fucking forbid that you have a poppy on your shirt in respect to our veterans, in respect to the men and women that died defending this fucking country. How fucking dare you?
It's crazy. It's not political at all. It's these idiots are saying it's political, but it's not. It's like
No.
what's going on in England where there are these people saying flying the English flag or the St. George's Cross is what they're calling it. What do they call it? Like they said it's being taken over by the far right, by the racist right. It's like, no, it's not. You're saying that. Like, these people are just flying the flag of their country. You're the one who's saying that it's problematic. It's this idiot judge. Like, just because she says it's political does not make it actually political. And it's funny because you've got something else like, say, the rainbow flag, and I don't even care where you stand. It's still a political symbol. Absolutely it is. But they would never ban that, right? So it isn't political symbols they're banning. They're banning the wrong kind of political symbols. They're picking and choosing which political symbols they want to ban, but the poppy isn't one. So I don't know. It's just it's ridiculous. Every day it seems like we sink lower. There's some new ridiculous outrage, but it is what it is.
I see Nadine is in the back. I thought we were there. Can you give me a thumbs up that we were supposed to be at 8:30? Because that's what I had in mind. Okay, so I'm sorry, but you get to listen to us for the next 20 minutes. So have to listen. You can just mute us if you want. But yep, Nadine is joining us at 8:30, so 20 minutes from now. So we got some time to cover exclusive building. Did you know that building in Canada has to be done inclusively? It has to be done considering the natives. We have to do land acknowledgements now when we're building in Canada. This is the new reality. Let's play this video. We'll go to the comments after, because both the stories are so ridiculous. It makes no sense. It's hard for me to believe that we're in Canada. But listen to Mark Carney announcing inclusivity building with a new Buy Canadian policy.
We're going to build. But it's not just about what we build, it's also how we build. And that's what I want to focus for the balance of my remarks.
What?
We're going to build inclusively, in full partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We will build in solidarity with workers, creating good union jobs. We will build sustainably, because reducing emissions isn't just a moral duty, it's an economic imperative.
No, it isn't,
and above
man.
all, we will build Canadian by becoming our own best customer. With our new Buy Canadian policy, whenever the federal government spends, we will select Canadian suppliers by default, rather than using the current best efforts approach. And this new approach will extend to all federal agencies, all Crown corporations, such as Build Canada Homes, such as Alto, High Speed Rail,
Brookfield.
such as our spending from our new Defense Investment Agency. Our Buy Canadian policy will include federal infrastructure spending, ensuring that as much as possible of that $70 billion we're planning to invest in the roads, bridges, and community centers on which Canadians rely comes from Canadian-made suppliers. And in those cases, when domestic suppliers aren't available, purchases will be required to include Canadian content or to be sourced from trusted partners. And those cases will be the exception, not the norm.
So, you know what? Not only does the building need to be inclusive, land acknowledgement, we need to put the green agenda in there. And not only that, but we absolutely need to deal with Canadian companies, even if it's not the cheapest option. Like, how about printing? Do we have that much money? Like, at the end of the day, should we support Canadians? 100%. Absolutely, we should. Does that mean that we should support Canadians even if they're twice the price of a competitor that's not in Canada? Yeah, no, that's not how business works. This is how government manage shit. And that's why Canada Post is losing billions. That's why they can't turn not even a profit, but be just neutral, balance their own budget. Because God knows we all know that just balance itself. And then VRL, that has no competitors, is in the hole for millions and millions of dollars too. And we wonder why crown corporations are not doing well, when you have a twat like Carney that's telling us that, you know what, we need to choose Canadians no matter what. I want to build Canada, but really? Really?
Well, it's just like none of this stuff is actually gonna. It doesn't. None of it matters, right? Like, I think who is it? It's Kenzie says up here. These are buzzwords and slogans. Like, what the fuck does build inclusively mean? Build sustainably? No, you just fucking build, man. Build the best buildings you can build for the lowest cost, and build infrastructure that's going to have the highest investment back into the economy. That's it. Nobody gives a shit about building sustainably, unless it makes if it makes sense. Sure, it's just, but none of this stuff matters. It's just all hot ticket buzzwords, right? That sound good in a soundbite. That's not how the economy is going to get back on track by making sure we include the Métis and Inuit in our building plans. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? Where's the talk about building pipelines, right? Building mines and railroads to ports that will allow us to export our energy and our minerals. That is where our natural our wealth lies, is in our natural resources. Building sustainably, building inclusively, that's not going to dig us out of this economic hole we find ourselves in. And yeah, like I agree with the idea of buying Canadian when you can. And that's fine. That's great. But like, he's passing this off like it's a major policy if it's going to do anything. I mean, and where was that talk when, however many months ago, when BC Ferries just spent $1 billion on Chinese ferries, right? The federal government gave BC Ferries, they lent them money at a song,
$1 billion.
Yeah, they gave them $1 billion, and I'm sure at some, crazy low interest, they basically subsidize it so they can turn around and buy from fucking China. Where is this buy Canada now, Mark? Or does it only matter when it's when it doesn't? He's probably like, I don't have any friends that work in the ferry industry, so it didn't matter. Yeah, I don't know.
Nadine, I know you're not supposed to join us for more than 14 minutes, but I can see you in the back and you're just laughing, and it seems that you might have an opinion. Do you want to join us? Give me a thumbs up if you want to jump on. Oh, that, no hesitation. Here's Nadine Wellwood. What's going on? Tell us how you feel about Mark Carney telling us that.
Hi, Rob. Hi, Nico. You guys are doing a great job. I really don't think I have a lot to contribute, but I can't help but laugh in the background because, you're just speaking so much truth.
We need to build inclusivity, land acknowledgements. We need to make sure, get the fuck out of here.
That's really working out in Richmond too, right? I bet in Richmond they're so glad that they've built inclusively.
Well, and your comment about the $1 billion in Chinese for the BC ferries, like seriously, where was this policy? And it's not as if they didn't know, because the budget was well underway and in the works at that point. And in addition to that, don't forget about the $1 billion that they're bringing in to attract new talent. And of course, that new talent is going to be subject to the DEI hiring standards, sure, that all the universities have. So just what we need to educate our vulnerable children, right, is more DEI woke professors and talent.
Exactly, right?
We need to.
They have no
to.
skills. They have no qualifications, but you see their skin color? Now that's talent. Let's hire them.
It's just insane. It's hard for me to believe that we're reporting the news. That's what blows my mind when I read this. Like, it's becoming a goal of mine to make Rob react with the news. To just see his face when a video is playing, and he's just like, "What the fuck are you guys talking about?"
Well, yeah,
it's not that hard.
I won't see it until the show, so we get a.
But it's not. I wish this was hard. I wish it took me a lot of brain time, a lot of research to find videos that are just crazy, yet they're everywhere. It's harder for me to just pick a few. There's so many stupidity going on coming out of the mouth of our politicians right now. It's hard for me to believe that we're not in a movie. One of our good listeners, Sasquatch, is from the US, and he says that Canada, he's been saying that since the election, that Canada is the best reality TV show. Like, it's the best. It's just the best. And their president is Trump. like, like it's
Yeah.
we live
Yeah.
just, before. There's a couple more things I wanted to cover, and I don't know if you have opinions on those, Nadine. It's just you were laughing so hard, I thought I'd just bring you in. But have you guys
Feel free to jump
heard?
in.
Oh, anytime we
Yep.
want to have your opinion. If you have something to say right now, I have two more stories I want to cover. If you want to join in, just let me know. But have you guys heard about the new 67,000 jobs that were added last month and how the Liberals were bragging about this? Have you heard this story yet?
Most of them are part-time, aren't they? Isn't that that's the fine print there? The they try to sneak through the rug. But in the
Well,
back
hold
door,
on. Let me play the video. I got a video where obviously the Liberals are, they're pumping their chests. They're very proud about themselves. But listen to this, and then I'll share the numbers. Oh, why is it so low?
And that's how many new jobs were created last month. 20,000 of these jobs were for young Canadians. A clear sign that our plan is working. In Canada, 1 in 5 jobs are related to trade. From small businesses to major exporters, Canadians are driving growth and creating opportunities. In Budget 2025, we have a plan to support our entrepreneurs, our workers, our exporters, as we build the strongest economy in the G7.
So this sounds great, right? 67,000 jobs. In the previous month, they had another great number. I think it was 80,000 new jobs. Turns out they were all in Alberta, and most of them were federal jobs, were public service jobs. They weren't the jobs that we need. So 67,000 new jobs added last month. Canada lost 18,000 full-time jobs and added 85,000 low-level part-time jobs, making 67,000 new part-time jobs. 41,000 of them were in retail, wholesale, 30,000 in transportation, warehousing, and 25,000 in information, culture, and recreation. I don't even know what the fuck that means. Information, culture, and recreation. But the point of the matter is that we lost 18,000 full-time jobs. 18,000 full-time jobs, and we added 85,000 part-time jobs. And we all know that those jobs are seasonal. It's because it's Christmas and everybody needs to have a Santa and little elves everywhere. So that's the type of jobs that they have. And you know that he was bragging about 40,000 of those jobs being for youth. That means half of those jobs, because 85,000 low-level part-time jobs, more than a half are for who exactly? We know who they are for. Open border policies. So what are we bragging about here? Like, Nadine, what do you think about government? We're talking about the Minister of Trade here. We're not just talking about a backbench MP. We're talking our Minister of Trade that is bragging about 67,000 new jobs when in fact they lost 18,000 full-time jobs to add 85,000 low-end part-time job. Is that not a lie?
Well, all the government cares about is the headline. And unfortunately, Canadians don't typically read past the headlines and get into the details. Where the jobs are created is more important than how many jobs are created. And to your point, we are coming into a seasonal kind of hiring spree, especially with young people in the retail sector. So all of those things do matter. So, they say they lost 18,000 and those were full-time positions. And those most likely were career positions, professional positions. Here in Canada or in Calgary, we got ExxonMobil now that is moving out. They're laying people off. So these are high-paying career positions that we're losing, and they're happy to boast just the number. Why? They don't want to get into the details, right? And you saw this with the budget. This was the budget 100%. Nothing but headlines. Let's change the definitions, even if we have to, because, heaven forbid, we've never seen that happen in Canada. Vaccines. I mean, sorry, I'm not sure we're allowed to say that on this show. But there's the reality. For them, it's just whatever the headlines and whatever the news is going to print as that one big kind of flashing, oh, this serves our purpose. Don't get into the details. They're not interested.
Yeah, right. Like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain kind of thing. But of course, it's the man behind the curtain that's really where the substance is. And I think that's a common theme. Well, I mean, it's a common theme with politicians in general, but especially Carney. They really seem to be going for this level of government. Really seems to just be going for the empty marketing wins that don't really do anything. But as long as it looks good on a headline, they're happy with it.
Well, the thing you have to be careful with Carney is Carney, despite whatever you want to say about him, he is a central banker. He understands the markets, the economies. He knows the language to use. And what he's using it for is manipulation and deception. He's not being honest. But don't get fooled. Everybody wanted this resume. This is the guy they wanted. And it's like, this is exactly what they're getting.
Yeah.
They claim that he's an economist. And I have to tell people, he's not an economist. He's a banker. There's a massive difference between an economist that understands how country's economy should run. That's not his intent. His intent is not to make Canada flourish. His intent is to turn us into a one world government by bankrupting us, so that they can sell the idea, oh guys, we need a world central bank to help us. IMF people, we need to be helped. And we're going to sign our lives away. But people don't seem to want to swallow that pill because it's too hard of a pill to swallow, to admit that the guy in power does not care about Canadians. He cares about his bureaucrat leaders, unelected bureaucrat leaders that are overseas. And for anybody out there that don't agree with what I'm saying, just go look at the minister's sworn, just their swearing ceremony. They don't swear to Canadians. They swear allegiance to the king. So if that doesn't scare you and make you understand what's going on here, it's not about us.
Always done it. They've always done it.
Yeah, that's why Canada's always been screwed.
Yeah. I mean, I see that almost as just tradition. But Carney specifically has far too close ties to the British monarchy specifically. But as you know, for my comfort, he clearly is European focused, European minded. I think, like you said, I think he sees himself as a global citizen, and he definitely
he's claimed to be
a globalist than anything, and that's the direction he's trying to bring Canada.
Well, what Canadians have to do is stop listening to the rhetoric and start looking at the outcomes, the results. This Liberal government for the last 10 years is nothing but in a state of decline, right? Canada, as a result, has been in a state of decline. Carney comes in with all these grandiose promises, and then guess what's happening? We're in that same state of decline, except he's expediting it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think people don't realize, like, he came in as the fresh face, right? The new guy, the adult in the room. But he was the head advisor for Trudeau for most of his, if not all of his government. So it really wasn't the big change people think it was.
No, and all you have to do is look at what he did in Europe. Look at what he did in the UK to their economy. I mean, they've had, the prior prime ministers to speak out to tell just the damage he did to their economy. And then we went and voted for it. This is what we're bringing here.
Yeah. Yeah, people were excited to vote for it for some reason.
Yeah, because it's change. We went from a tall moron to went from a tall puppet moron to actually a very smart guy. People that think that Mark Carney's an idiot, Mark Carney is not an idiot. He's a Marxist, but he is brilliant. He's scarily brilliant, but he's evil as hell. That dude is so evil, but he is not an idiot. Don't underestimate Mark Carney, because that guy is not a moron.
No, we replaced the puppet with the puppet master.
Yeah, and he's clear. And that's what I was going to say to Rob, is that prior to the election and even during the campaign, he was a self-proclaimed globalist banker. Like, he has no shame in saying it. He was part of the WEF board. He was the special envoy for the UN for climate change. The dude is all about globalism. He does not care about Canada, and he sees Canada as probably the biggest untapped natural resources in the world. We have the most untapped natural resources in the world. We're the second biggest country. And what's the best thing that he can do? Bankrupt the country to make sure that we align with at least a North American union. I'm saying a global union. But can you imagine having all the natural resources of Canada with an economy that's bankrupt? Can you imagine how pennies on the dollar? But there's no reason, Nadine, can you think of one reason that is not a bad one, why we have a liberal government that over the past 10 years and now the continuation, we're seeing it in front of our eyes, that would want to keep our natural resources in the ground and destroy our relationship with our biggest buyer, the US. Can you see any good that could ever come out of not exploiting our natural resources and destroying our biggest relationship?
Not any good ones. So, I mean, if we were in a position of power and we were able to obtain natural resources from somewhere else for cheaper, for example, that we were exploiting, there might be a reason or an argument that could be made for keeping our own natural resources in the ground. That's not necessarily a good one, but at least it would serve Albertans and Canadians. But right now, what we're seeing is actual managed decline. We are seeing Canadians, and Mark Carney, that's the one promise that he has kept, is that Canadians need to suffer and will suffer. And that's exactly what's happening. And the longer we keep those natural resources in the ground, namely oil and gas in particular, which, the world is in desperate need of from an energy perspective, the worse off that we're going to become. And this adding more and more debt. Debt is debt. You can separate operational from capital expenditures all you want. That is just BS. It is wordsmithing. It is dishonest and misleading. It is deceptive. And the reality is this budget in particular was based on a lot of very optimistic assumptions. And, like this whole idea about attracting private capital to Canada, it's laughable. Canada right now, 30%. Foreign investment has left this country in droves. Can't get out fast enough. 30% since 2018. What makes him think that he's going to flip this around overnight?
Most of it's gone to the US too. Is that not correct?
It's gone to, most of it has definitely gone to the US. Some of it has gone to different countries, but the US is just a positive place to invest. The government gets out of the way, allows business to do what business does. This budget is the simplest thing in the world to fix. It really is. The solution is so easy. People don't even believe me. We wouldn't even be able to have a conversation because it's just reduce regulation, stop spending, and reduce the size of government. Get out of the way, in other words, and let the private capital market, let the economy do what it needs to do. We don't need the government to build houses. Why? Because we have people who can build houses 10 times faster, 10 times better, and 10 times cheaper than the government. The problem is the government's in the way.
So one of the things that you identified right away when we covered the tabling of the new budget last week is recurring costs. So monthly recurring costs, like we used to call them MRR in my world. And then you would have your investment costs, if you will, what you put down upfront cost that is cash right now. And the budget was separating both, right? They were making the operational costs, your MRR, if you will, separate from the investment, the hard cash. Can you explain that to the people that are listening to our listeners right now? What they did?
Yeah, international accounting standards, even for governments, you account for all of your debt. And that becomes your debt to GDP ratio, for example. You take everything that you have and then all the liabilities, and you're honest about it. And, it's a percentage. Canada's is about 2.25% is what we're spending more than what our GDP of about 1%. And the GDP in Canada has been on a decline for the last 3 years. It's actually been negative. So there is no real growth. And as I pointed out, the OECD says that our productivity is actually one of the lowest of all the countries which they monitor. And there's 37 countries in the OECD, and they monitor another 12. So Canada is not a performer economically. And the reason is because of our policies. The Bank of Canada warned about this. So what again, this is where Mark Carney, he understands the system. He's incredibly intelligent. He knows how this works. So he can shift the capital expenditures, which is still debt. It's still borrowed money. But he says, no, we're going to put that in a category of itself, and we're going to call it an investment. it's not an investment. And there's terms around what an investment is. And I explained that in my own video. I did my own little rant before I got on the show earlier today, because it's illusion, right? And it's just to change the word, change the definition to make it suit his need. Why? Because he wants to be able to, for the headline to read that the deficit is under control, right? That we're managing that deficit. And so what he's doing is he's hiding this capital expenditure as an investment, but that's still debt. And so that is taking money out of future generations' pockets today. So that is something that is going to be, it's very, very dishonest, extremely dishonest. And the operational, to say that he's decreasing that, he has yet to decrease that. His plan to do that is to reduce the public service by 40,000 people. That's not till potentially 2029. And we'll see if that happens, because this Liberal government has no credibility. Have they fulfilled a single promise yet? No. Mark Carney said, well, the budget when he first got in, maybe I think it was $38 billion deficit. It was what he was talking about. Then it was a $42 billion deficit. Then when it actually comes out, we're talking $78.3 billion. Like, wow, it doubled. Like that gives me a lot of room for hope here and optimism that these guys actually can do what they say they're going to do.
I have a question for you, Nadine. This is actually related to this comment here from LOL. It says he's emptying our CPP. Now, I'd heard something about the CPP, and maybe you can go into a little more detail about it, because as we know, CPP is not an asset to the Canadian government. It is a liability, because it's money they have to pay us out at some point in the future.
You're incorrect. You're incorrect in that.
Okay.
So this is what Canadians want to believe. Again, language matters, right? It's the Canada pension plan. It is my pension plan. I have contributed to it. I have paid into it, correct? That's what everybody believes. That is a myth. So I did a tour around Alberta a couple of years ago and explained to people why Alberta needed its own pension plan. And I'm not a fan of Alberta even having a pension plan. I think people should be able to manage their own money and spend their own money and invest their own money without the government getting in the way. But here's the reality. You cannot change what you do not control. So we have a Canada pension plan. There's no other alternative for Alberta to get out unless it first takes back what it belongs to it, and then we can change whatever we want. But the reality is the Canada pension plan is not a pension. The CPPIB, which is the board now called Canada Investments, they are managing money on behalf of the government, the surpluses that are collected from the people who contribute. Now, your dollar, every dollar you invest, and I shouldn't say invest, every dollar you give the government, it's a payroll tax. That's how you need to think of it. Canada Pension Plan is a payroll tax, and it's a benefit system that they offer. It's not an actual guarantee, and it's not an obligation. They can change the rules at any time. They can lower the benefits. They can actually eliminate the benefits if they want. The whole program could go away. And the reality is, it is not ours. It is a government asset. It has always been an asset on the government's books. The Minister of Finance has direct control. Yeah, but this is again the misleading information, and people need to start thinking about what the proper role of government is, but they need to understand that the government is going to tell you the nice words. You got to dig a little deeper. CPP is a payroll tax. Every dollar that you have contributed, all those people who are retired today, that's where it goes. It goes in and it goes out to pay for those retirees today. There is a little bit of a surplus that gets invested, but the unfunded liabilities, and again, this is in this budget, is where it's so truly deceptive. They put the CPP on as an asset. So we have $700 billion in assets. What they did not include was the $1.4 trillion in unfunded liabilities that it owes to Canadians.
Wow.
How is that? Because a lot of the things, when we covered the budget last week, we had a lot of conversation because it lasted for 2 hours, right? So we did speak a lot, and it seems to me that they're blatantly lying. because you can't remove like NRCs. That's what we used to call them. When I signed contracts, you had an NRC portion, your non-recurring costs, which is give me money right up front as soon as you sign the contract, and your recurring costs, your monthly recurring costs, or your MRR. You call them operational. They want to call them investment, the NRC, but it's hard cash versus outgoing costs that you need to pay every month. That is one thing that they're completely removed. They're removing a very important portion, calling it investment. But I want you to define investment for us like you did last week on the live, because I don't think most Canadians understand it. I'm not saying they're idiots. I'm just saying it's good that we start at a place of understanding. So explain to us, what is an investment?
Well, when you make an investment, you are investing your capital, your money, your time, your resources. There's usually a time limit in which you expect to receive a return on that investment, correct? Now, and there's different levels of risk in investing as well. And what you're seeing, even if, what the budget is talking about, even if it was an investment, the amount of risk it is assuming, most of the activities are actually speculative, which is the highest risk of investment. So an investment is something that you personally make, right? Because there is risk involved and you bear the outcome, whether it's good or bad. So this is the other thing with risk. The government has nothing to risk. Right. So an investment, has to have an element of risk to it. Otherwise, it's not an investment. So the government itself risks nothing. It is your capital that they're investing. And if they screw it up, they lose nothing.
They don't produce money, right?
The government is actually not productive. This is one of the hardest things for public employees because they feel as if, you devalue them when you state this. But this is the truth. A public employee is paid with after-tax dollars. So my $1 of taxes goes to the government. They then give out that to a public employee. They go, but I pay taxes too. But yes, but it's with my after-tax dollar. It is not a new dollar created. And that's the difference. This is where we need to understand what it's meant by productivity. The small businesses, the medium-sized businesses, they're the ones that add to the bottom line of revenue. Public employees take away from the revenues. They're an expense. And so when you look at it that way, and it's not devaluing our nurses or our teachers or anything like that, we need those services, but you need to understand that you are not contributing to the productivity, to the bottom line of the country, that is actually an expense and a drain. And it takes the productive part of the economy, the small business owner, to actually produce the dollar in order to give it to you. So every time I see teachers and nurses and everybody going on strike, you might as well put a gun to my head and tell me, hey, Nadine, I need another 20 cents of every dollar you make. Why? Because I need a higher wage. And I'm sitting here going, I don't have another 20 cents to give you. They're already taking 50 cents. How am I supposed to live? So that's I think if there was any one message for people to understand, and again, it's not about devaluing your value and what you contribute to society. It is truly understanding, just from a mathematical and economic perspective, the government does not produce anything. It simply redistributes money that the taxpayer, the productive part of the economy, generates.
And the statistics right now are showing that 1 out of 5 working Canadians work for some level of government, either municipal, provincial, or federal.
It's worse than that. So it's about 25% of the Canadian labor market. So if you think about, there's about 16 million people in the Canadian labor market. 4 million of them work directly for government. There is another 4 million or so of that actually are NGOs, consultants. So the subsidiary teachers, nurses, right? That again, are relying on the taxpayer dollar. So, you have about 50% of the population that is in some way, shape, or form right now drawing. And then that only leaves 2 people working to produce the taxpayers in order to fund these activities. And it's going to get worse because we have an aging population. Our labor productivity is going down. And that's the one thing in this government that they just swept it under the carpet. They didn't even bother bringing it up. We're borrowing more money than we ever have in the history of this country at a time when we know those operational expenses are going to go through the roof. Why? Because we have a demographic that is aging. That means our health care, that means our pension liabilities and expenses are going to go up. It's insanity.
Do you think, and the irony in your statement is that the same people that are going to become reliant on us, on the 2 out of 4 Canadians that pay for government employees or people working around the government on our taxpayers' money, are going to be dependent on us to supply them with money, yet they're the ones voting for Carney. If you look at the out polls, the voting out polls are showing that the baby boomers are the ones voting for Carney, yet they don't understand how they're screwing their granddaughters, their grandkids. And now in 10 years, 20 years, they're going to expect us to pay for them.
Right, Rob. They don't care. They are looking at this from the standpoint of, I have contributed to this my whole life. They're not wrong in that. I've worked for this. I deserve my CPP. I deserve my OAS. And they're not wrong. They've contributed. But you have to understand. So let's take a look at the Canada Pension Plan. So when it was started in 1966, the reality was we had 7 workers for every 1 person who was retired. The average person lived to the age of 67. So we had to support them for 2 years, right? Because you only took your CPP at 65. And the person who was paying those 7 workers, they were only paying like 2.some%. Right, of their paycheck. It was like minuscule. You didn't even notice it. Now you're contributing. If you're self-employed, it's like 14% of what you're paying goes in, right, up to the numbers. And I don't want to get bogged down in the numbers tonight, but you're paying. The point is people are paying a hell of a lot more today for less benefit. And the reason it's not sustainable is the average age of death today is 83. It's not 67. So what the government said, we'll win over votes. And here's how they snuck this in. They said, well, they were going to help address poverty. If you don't pay into the CPP, you don't get CPP. So there is no way that you're addressing poverty with it. That's just a fallacy. But they dangled it as a carrot to get people to sign up for the social insurance number.
Can you go into that a little bit more? Explain that.
So typically when the government wants you to do something, they'll give you an incentive, right? And so what better way than to give people incentive? Well, if you sign up for the social insurance number, which was completely voluntary, by the way, at the time.
Oh, you mean when they first introduced the social insurance number?
When they first introduced it. No, it came in 1966, the same time as the Canada Pension Plan. That is not a coincidence. So people just don't understand the history and they don't go far enough back into the history to actually understand. It was an incentive. It was like, hey, if you are a part of the social insurance number and you sign up for this, you're going to be eligible for this beautiful pension, right? When you retire. And that's how they get you. They always dangle a carrot, get you to sign up to something voluntarily, and then all of a sudden they gotcha. And then, so I think before the government tells you that something's free or, hey, we can offer you this, don't underestimate the fact that there's always a catch. There's always a cost to you, the taxpayer, to you, the individual, whether it be to your freedoms. We're living in a surveillance society today. That's not by chance, right? And we keep giving up our freedoms little bit by little bit, thinking, that the little crumbs they're giving us are some sort of freebie, but that's not reality. We have to pay for it all. And our grandchildren, you're absolutely right, Rob. It's a shame that the baby boomers are still voting Liberal, but this is why. They don't want to lose all these benefits that they, to a certain extent, rightfully have the right to say, well, I've paid into that. But the problem is what they don't realize is your grandchildren will pay about 8 times, 10 times more to fund your retirement and find themselves left with nothing when that time comes for them.
Wow.
And, David FL is saying something. I was going to say that the next carrot is the digital ID, right? Is there, I know it's not really related to the budget, and I really want you to give us like your top 10 biggest problem that you found with the budget, but is there any mention of the digital ID in the budget? Is there something related to it? Because I know they've been developing it at least since COVID. I have people that approach me saying they've been developing it for 15 years, way before COVID. But is that something that was in your budget? Because to me, I agree. That's the next carrot, is the digital ID.
Yeah, there is references to digitization. There is references to IT services and innovation and technology throughout the budget. So absolutely, there's definitely some, implications in there for sure. Although it's not mentioned directly as, a digital ID or a CBDC, for example. But, you can see with the shift to AI and their terminology, which they use, digitizing of services, that they're definitely moving more and more away from the traditional pen and paper people interface and more into what AI can do to reduce costs and inefficiencies. And, one thing does lead to another.
Can you tell us your top 10? Because I know you gave 10 on the live on the top of your head the other day, but I know you have a top 10 somewhere. Can you tell us what your 10 biggest concerns are with the budget?
Well,
Or even top 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Negotiation, top 5.
The biggest thing with this budget is its abuse of the Canadian population and their little understanding of economics and financial terms. So this whole separating of operational from capital expenditures to kind of give the government that headline, oh, look at how well we're doing, we're managing our deficit, is truly, truly deceptive and dishonest for me. That one stands out as unbelievable as far as a manipulative way to kind of push your agenda through. So that one obviously is a big one. And then using it in, they use that term investment more than 50 times in that budget. I actually had to go back and I gave up counting after 50, but more than 50 times they use that term investment. And when people hear investment, it provides a different emotional, psychological response than spending. And this is what they're doing. It's spending. It's borrowed money that they're spending. So this is part of the debt. This is part of the deficit. And it was intentionally removed and segregated in order to make the budget sound better for the Liberals. That's the only reason they separated those things. And most countries don't even do this. It's not even a typical international standard that they're applying here. So this was just, gymnastics, accounting gymnastics. The big one for me was it didn't address any of the real structural issues. And then it was the blame game on the US for tariffs. So Carney keeps saying that this is all a problem with the United States. And yet in the budget, as well as that on that day when they announced it, they were very clear that Canada, 85% of our economy is not subject to any kind of tariff whatsoever. The other 15% that is, it's 5.4%. So we have the best deal. This is the Liberal government that said this. We have the best deal of any other country around the world as far as the tariffs and trade go. In the next breath, they say, oh, it's all Trump's fault. It's all the tariffs that have created the problems. Well, I just finished saying that foreign investment has left Canada to the tune of 30% less since 2018, where Trump wasn't around in 2018. The OECD, the Council of Canada Council of Business had put out a great statement, that this is a result of policies. And the Bank of Canada has said this is structural. So the Bank of Canada has a small little toolbox that they can use with very few tools in it in order to help kind of control the monetary policy. One of those is interest rates. When the Bank of Canada keeps lowering interest rates, what does that say? It says it doesn't have the confidence in the Canadian economy. You got business investment leaving. This budget, what's truly scary about it, its major assumption is that this government will increase foreign investment, business investment in Canada, and that growth in the economy is going to happen. That is a very dangerous assumption right now. And if that doesn't happen, that is adding to the debt and deficit that is already there. So the deficit could be increased with just a 1% off on those numbers by $9 billion a year. Our borrowing costs are now federal and provincial combined $90 billion annually. That is more than we spend on defense, more than we spend on healthcare transfers. That is unsustainable. Absolutely unsustainable. So those are a few of my top things. Combine that with the fact that we have an aging population, which they didn't even acknowledge the problems that is going to create for us, because those operational expenditures have no choice but to go up unless everybody opts for MAID, which is why maybe the government's pushing it so hard.
That's what they're hoping for. Yeah, that's exactly right.
It is.
Yeah.
So, when you look at all of these things, it's just not a good news story. And this all happening again at a time when Canadians, there's more people at the food banks right now than there's ever been in our history. Inflation is running out of control. And this budget is going to create more inflation, not less. And now we got the government who we had a productive sector in the housing industry. Now the government is coming in with its own money. They're going to crowd out that private investment in housing. So they're going to bankrupt the people who know what they're doing, can get it done with their inefficient, ineffective, and it's all cronyism. There's not a person who's going to put $1 in Canada today unless the government somehow 100% guarantees they're not going to lose their money. So that means all these subsidies, and now the government is picking and choosing the winners and the losers. The climate green technology. Oh, those guys, hey, what a great time to be in Canada right now, investing in that, right? Because the government's going to give you the money to do it. And who cares if you're successful or not successful, because you're not investing your money, you're spending mine.
Yeah. I mean, that's, well,
There's my rant.
Not the most optimistic news, but I mean, I think we got to be real here, right? We need to talk about you can't sugarcoat these things. I think it's important to talk about why this is trouble, why this budget is so problematic. Because from the headlines, it looks fine. Like what we talk a lot about, like our personal lives, a little bit on the show. And like my parents, I'll talk about, they're that classic sort of clueless boomer liberals. They don't want, don't really follow the news. They're not political wonks or anything, but they love Carney. They're not dumb or anything by that. They're very smart and they're very good. They're great people. They just don't really follow the stuff. They don't look beyond the headlines. And if you go by the headlines, they I use them example because I think they're very typical of the typical liberal boomer voter across Canada. You can,
the ones that won't have to live through the damage that he's creating.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
They will not have to live through the damage and the problems that he is creating. And this is a pretty all political theater. And I'm not saying even that the Conservatives would have done, a much better job. I mean, I'm sure they would have done a better job. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But they still are faced with the same. To fix the problems, it's not with the public, with the masses, as you point out with the baby boomers, it's not popular. Right? Yeah. So that becomes the problem. And that's the one thing that we lack in this country right now. We don't have any leadership here. We don't have anybody that's willing to speak the truth and stand up and tell people what the problem actually is and how we need to fix it. The government needs to reduce its size, reduce its spending, and it needs to be put back in the little tiny cage in which we let it out of, because we have created this monster. And this is the other thing right now, even with social contracts. You saw what happened with the CFIA in Edgewood, BC, and the ostriches. And I don't want to bring that up because I find it very disturbing myself. But the reality is you have government agencies who for some reason seem to have authority. And my question always comes, where are they getting this authority? Who gave them the authority? If government is supposed to be a creation of the people, how does this stuff happen? Right? And the government is very good at punishing success and rewarding failure. Right. And
Yeah,
yet we keep giving
absolutely.
it more and more authority over us. So, these are the things that, and this is what in my book, I challenge a lot of these ideas around taxation, about licensing and registration, about who has the authority. Unions right now are nothing but a tool of politics. Unfortunately, they're being used and abused. People are, their money is forcefully taken out of their paychecks. They're not given a choice. And then their money is given to political ideology and entities. Right here in Alberta, we had the teachers go on strike. There wasn't $1 to give them pay strike, like strike pay. And yet they've been contributing for 20 years to all these union dues. Where did they go? Like, who's asking these questions? We need people like you guys, which do such a great job of challenging and asking. You're only going to get the answer to the question you ask. And most people don't even know what question to ask anymore.
Let me ask you this, Nadine. Considering that our population is aging, considering the amount of mass immigration that we have in Canada year after year after year, that have never contributed, that have never participated in the system whatsoever, but they get to take advantage of our social system, do you think that it's a possibility that we can save this country financially without first going for the equity that the boomers have in their household? Because this was floated around a few times over the past few years. And guess what? People that own houses, and this is not, I'm not trying to rip on boomers. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just going by the statistics, and I'm going by what was said. The people that own houses today are the vast majority are boomers. The people that have a lot of equity in their houses, the vast majority are boomers. It's ironic that the vast majority of boomers voted for Mark Carney because they're not thinking what's going to happen to them, because they're not the one, as you said, that's going to pay for that. It's going to be their grandchildren that are going to pay for what's happening today. But are there, in your mind, is it possible to save this country financially, or is it too late now?
So first off, a couple of things there. Let's leave the save the country for a moment. Let's talk about the definition of equity. What is equity? So people are so easy to throw around these financial terms without fully understanding what they are. Let's analyze whether or not you have any equity in your house. So you take even the baby boomer, their sweat, their tears, their labor, they've paid off their home. Right now, the government goes, oh, you have no payments on your home. You have equity in your home because you've paid it off. Hold on now. You had that home mortgaged for 30 years, probably, right? Let's add up all the interest payments that you've paid to that home. Let's add the maintenance. Let's add the renovation costs, right? Let's add up all the costs. How much equity do you actually have in your home? You've probably paid, 4 times what the purchase price of it was, right? So let's take a look at somebody right now today who has a $500,000 home. Let's say the market goes up and they've held that home now for 20 years. 20 years of a mortgage payment, even at 3-4%, they've paid 3 times that $500,000. So in order for them to have any equity in the home right there, just because of mortgage and interest payments, then they would have had to have paid, they'd have to get more than $1.5 million for their house. So, when we throw around these terms, people don't stop to think that, oh, I actually don't have any real equity in my home. Yeah, I've paid my home off. That's all I've done, right? And at a very expensive way to do that. Mortgage is till death, right? And you see intergenerational mortgages in Europe because they cannot afford houses and housing. So that's number one. As far as, paying off, Canada, honestly, has so much natural resources. If we actually put the government back in its box and told it defense is your responsibility and the courts, the judiciary, that's your responsibility. You need to adjudicate when you and I have a disagreement, when your freedom infringes upon mine. We need somebody to be able to decide who's in the right and who's in the wrong. That's about it. That's really, in my opinion, and if you look at Milton Friedman, you look at Thomas Sowell, you talk about Frederick Bastiat, all of these, economic and philosophers, that I follow, that's what they see as a very small, limited role of government. Right now, government providing public health care, public education, they do all of that miserably, and it's not their responsibility. So we have to cut the government back to what its proper role and function is, and then allow communities, allow our provincial and municipal governments to step in to fulfill some of these other obligations, right? But again, the government should have no right to tell you what you can and cannot do on your property, this also being your property. And we saw how they violated that in COVID. Canada has no property rights. You do not have a single property right in Canada. And that is a very scary place to be right now, especially when the government is talking in this budget, increasing the number of RCMP by another 1,000 people. To do what? Go out to the CFIA and, throw people off their properties and destroy their property and their animals? The amount of money that was spent on that operation should disgust every Canadian. We have hard drugs. We have criminals. We have massive crime problems in all of our centers. We have rural theft going on. And we have how many RCMP officers defending and protecting the CFIA from, in my opinion, doing something that was completely immoral and unethical to begin with.
They need 100%. Another 1,000 RCMP agent to be able to enforce C2, C8, C9, and C63.
Yep.
If they ever pass.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're building up, because the RCMP works for the government. They do not work for the people. Again, it's like Rob, to your point about the CPP, people think, well, it's my pension. No, They also think that the military works for us. No, they do not. The military works for the government. It is there to protect the government. RCMP are they take their orders directly from the federal government. They're not here to protect you and me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Canadians don't really understand that.
No, they don't. They don't. And that's where, we, people like us, you and I, we have to, get people to start thinking about these things, because again, you can't get to the truth unless you debate it. And this is what this Liberal government is trying to do. Shut the debate down. You cannot, go against the narrative that the government has told you. That's obedience. It is not my job as a citizen to be obedient, right? It is my job to be civil, right, with my fellow citizens, right, to not infringe upon your rights, and you don't infringe upon mine. But aside from that, you should be free to live your life how you see fit, right?
100%. Absolutely. On this show, we've got a pretty broad spectrum here. I'm a common sense liberal. There are a few of us left out there. Nico's obviously conservative. But yeah, that's one of the things that we're just trying to do here is to kind of generate that sort of civil discourse, almost be the change you wish to see, so that we can have these kind of conversations, and I think raise some of the awareness that you're talking about here. Because to be honest, even some of the things that we're talking about, even I am sort of not entirely informed, right? As I kind of thought that the CPP was also ours. I think that's certainly how it should be. It's certainly set up that way. It's certainly marketed that way. But we really appreciate you coming on the show and educating us, educating the audience. This is an excellent conversation, Nadine. We're talking, of course, with Nadine Wellwood, author of Alberta Rising. Guys, we're going to pin it there. Nadine, was there anything you wanted to add on that? Anything you want to plug?
No, absolutely not. My book is really meant about sparking conversation and posing questions like these that we've done here. So if you're interested, it is available on Amazon. I'm a really easy person to find. You Google my name and I come up. So if you have any questions, any of your listeners, and they want, just to engage in some more kind of conversation, dialogue, You have a specific question, by all means, I'm quite happy. As a chartered investment manager, you know, for 20 some years now, I've had to follow the economics and the politics and the geopolitical environment. You know, there's all of these things right now that are converging in very problematic ways. So, I mean, even from a market perspective, we're in for some real headwinds. This is why this budget is so incredibly scary, right? We are in for some incredible headwinds here. And, you know, this is just such an irresponsible thing to do at a time like this. So thank you both so much for having me on. It has been an absolute pleasure. And you know, you didn't have to bring me on there earlier. I was just enjoying listening to the two of you go at it there back and forth. I was shaking my head like, I mean,
well,
here.
well, we appreciate you, Nadine. Thank you so much. And this was an excellent chat. Guys, we're gonna pin it there. If you're watching, if you're just tuning in tonight and you like what Nico and I are doing, the community we're trying to build here, please consider supporting the show. You can do that through by becoming a member through YouTube or buying us a coffee, which you can find on one of these two, the top right hand corner of your screen. There's a VR code. Other than that, Nico, unless there's anything you wanted to add, I think we will close off, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night.